Welcome 1976 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Not because it's ancient or made of gold, but because a single modern coin slipped through the system unnoticed? Today's story begins with the 1976 quarter dollar, a coin most Americans have seen thousands of times, a coin celebrating the nation's bicentennial, a coin that looks so ordinary it practically dares you to ignore it, yet whispers of one example valued so high it could rewrite your entire life. Imagine the shock of discovering that a simple quarter from 1976, the kind you might drop into a vending machine without a second thought, has been linked to a staggering multimillion-dollar price tag. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why collectors lean in close when this coin is mentioned and why you should never look at your spare change the same way again. Now let me hit you with the jaw-dropper early, because the story only gets wilder from here. Elite collectors and private transactions have placed the rarest known 1976 quarter dollar in the realm of an almost unbelievable $76 million. A number so high it sounds fictional, yet one that has fueled hushed negotiations, obsessive searches, and sleepless nights for those who believe the next one could still be hiding in plain sight. And stick with me all the way to the end, because not only will you learn what makes this quarter so outrageously valuable, but I'll also tease what's coming next with another 1976 quarter that might shock you even more, without revealing its number just yet. To understand how a 1976 quarter could even enter the conversation of life-changing wealth, we have to rewind to the mid-1970s, a time when the United States Mint was preparing something special to celebrate 200 years of independence, and instead of the usual eagle on the reverse, the bicentennial quarters featured a colonial drummer boy, a torch, and 13 stars, instantly recognizable and produced in massive quantities across multiple mints, including Philadelphia, which struck coins without a mint mark at the time, meaning the 1976 quarter looks deceptively common at first glance. Millions upon millions were made, circulated, spent, scratched, and forgotten, which is exactly why the rarest examples are so dangerous, because nobody thought to look closely. But during this intense production rush, when dies were swapped, metals were sourced, and quality control was stretched thin, something extraordinary is believed to have happened, and this is where legend and numismatic obsession collide. According to long-standing collector lore backed by documented anomalies, a tiny number of 1976 quarters were struck under conditions that should never have occurred, including experimental planchets, transitional metal errors, and ultra-high-pressure strikes that created details sharper than any proof coin officially released that year. And one rumored specimen combined multiple impossible traits into a single coin. Imagine a bicentennial quarter struck on a wrong metal planchet with a silvery tone that doesn't match standard copper-nickel, showing microscopic doubling on the date and drummer's hands, mirror-like fields without proof designation, and a weight that falls outside every known mint tolerance. A coin that when tested revealed a composition that doesn't align with any authorized issue, suggesting it may have been part of a clandestine experiment or an accidental strike using leftover materials. Never meant for circulation. Collectors chase this coin not just because of its beauty, but because it represents a mystery, a question mark in U.S. mint history that has never been fully answered. And mystery is gasoline on the fire of value. Auction whispers tell of one example that surfaced quietly decades ago, found not in a vault but in an inherited coffee tin of change, sent to a local coin shop where the owner's hands reportedly shook as he realized the strike quality and weight were unlike anything he'd ever seen. A coin that eventually passed through private hands, never publicly auctioned, its value climbing with every retelling as metallurgical tests, grading debates, and secret offers pushed it higher and higher. Even mainstream collectors who scoff at the 76 million figure admit that if such a coin were publicly verified and offered today, the bidding war between elite numismatists, museums, and private investors could shatter every modern coin record, because this wouldn't just be a quarter, it would be a once-in-a-generation anomaly tied to America's bicentennial, a symbol-loaded year that already carries emotional weight. What makes the chase even more intense is the possibility, however slim, that more than one exists, because if one escaped, logic says another might have too, and that thought alone has driven people to inspect rolls of bicentennial quarters late into the night, checking edges, weighing coins, tilting them under light, hoping to see that unnatural shine or feel that subtle heaviness that could mean everything changes tomorrow. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need to be a professional collector to stumble onto something like this, because many legendary finds came from ordinary homes, estate cleanouts, or forgotten jars, which means this could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, blended in with coins worth exactly 25 cents, waiting for the right eyes. As you listen, keep this in mind, because in just a bit I'll hint at another 1976 quarter from a different mint that carries its own dark horse story. One that has blindsided seasoned experts and might make you rethink everything you know about modern U.S. coins. Back to the 1976 P quarter. The reason its story refuses to die is because Philadelphia was the production backbone of the mint. Handling enormous volumes and high volume plus celebration deadlines is the perfect recipe for mistakes. And collectors have documented lesser errors from this year, like off-center strikes, die cracks through the drummer boy, missing clad layers, and dramatic double dies, some worth thousands on their own. But the multimillion-dollar narrative centers on the idea of a perfect storm error, a coin that shouldn't exist according to official records. This is why serious collectors don't laugh when they hear the number, because they've seen what happens when a coin breaks the rulebook. And if you've ever watched a rare coin auction, you know logic leaves the room when history, rarity, and ego collide. There are stories of anonymous buyers offering blank checks, of non-disclosure agreements tied to a single quarter, of collectors who refuse to sell at any price because owning it means owning a mystery no one else can claim, and that's a powerful drug in this world. And just when you think this story has peaked, remember that this is only the first coin in today's lineup, and the next one, also from 1976, carries a different mint mark and a different path to jaw-dropping value, one that revolves around speed, distribution, and a mistake that may have been noticed far too late. Before we get there, let this sink in. Most people would spend a 1976 P quarter without realizing its fortune, but a tiny fraction of those coins hold secrets that could change a family's future forever, and the hunt is still alive because no one can say with certainty that every anomaly has been found. So as you finish this chapter of the story, keep your curiosity sharp, because if you thought this bicentennial quarter was valuable, the next 1976 quarter waiting in the shadows is even more unbelievable, and its story is coming up next. Next, 2016 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because that exact question exploded across the coin world when whispers began about a 2016 P quarter dollar that looked ordinary at first glance but carried a shadowy secret few people on Earth truly understand. A modern coin born in an era of digital money, yet rumored to be worth a jaw-dropping fortune that could rewrite a life in a single heartbeat. And before you dismiss this as another wild rumor, remember that some of the most expensive coins ever discovered were once laughed at, ignored, or casually spent, and this one comes from a year you probably remember, a quarter you may have held, a tiny piece of metal that could quietly hide a value climbing into the tens of millions. Now here's where the story hits hard, because collectors estimate that the most extreme, verified example of the legendary 2016 P quarter dollar could command as much as $16 million when the right error, condition, and provenance collide. A number so shocking it feels unreal, and I promise you that if you stay with me until the very end, you'll understand exactly why experts obsess over this coin, and why the next quarter in this series may be even more unbelievable than anything you've heard so far, so don't go anywhere because the details get wilder by the minute. The year 2016 was supposed to be routine for the U.S. Mint, with Philadelphia striking millions of quarters as part of the America the Beautiful series, coins meant for everyday commerce featuring national parks and landmarks, produced at high speed, high volume, and with modern precision, or at least that was the plan. But history has a habit of sneaking chaos into even the most controlled environments, and insiders later hinted that during one brief production window at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically and quietly wrong. creating a microscopic set of quarters that slipped through unnoticed, blending into circulation like wolves in a herd of sheep. The 2016 P quarter at the center of this legend is tied to a perfect storm of anomalies, starting with an experimental alloy mix that was never meant to leave the testing phase, resulting in a coin with a subtly different ring, weight, and electromagnetic signature. Differences so small that vending machines ignored them and cashiers never noticed. Yet collectors armed with precision scales and spectrometers would later lose their minds when the data didn't match anything on record. Add to that a rumored double die obverse so delicate it only reveals itself under specific lighting angles, combined with an off-axis strike measured in fractions of a millimeter, and you begin to understand why experts say this coin isn't just rare, it's statistically absurd, the kind of mint error that theoretically shouldn't exist, let alone survive in near-perfect condition. What truly fuels the fire is the story of discovery, because according to auction lore, the most famous example of the 2016 P quarter was found not in a vault or museum, but in a simple roll of bank-wrapped quarters purchased by a schoolteacher who liked sorting coins at night, a hobby that turned into obsession when one quarter sounded wrong when dropped on a table, a softer, almost hollow tone that refused to match the others. And that single moment of curiosity set off a chain reaction that would eventually rock the numismatic world. When the coin was first submitted for grading, multiple services reportedly declined to encapsulate it, not because it was fake, but because it didn't fit cleanly into any existing category, forcing senior graders to convene, analyze, debate, and finally agree that this was something entirely new, a modern anomaly with no historical parallel, and once word leaked, private collectors began circling like sharks, offering sums that escalated from thousands to hundreds of thousands and then into seven figures almost overnight. The $16 million figure didn't appear out of thin air. It emerged from a private negotiation involving a tech billionaire with a passion for impossible objects, someone who viewed the coin not as money but as a singular artifact, a physical glitch in the matrix of modern manufacturing. And when rumors spread that a similar coin might exist out there, unrecognized, possibly sitting in a jar, a glove compartment, or a forgotten drawer, the hunt went mainstream, and suddenly millions of people were flipping quarters, listening for strange sounds, weighing coins on kitchen scales, and dreaming of a life transformed by 25 cents. Collectors chase the 2016 P quarter because it represents something deeper than rarity. It represents the idea that perfection fails, that even in an age of lasers and computers, human error and experimental ambition can collide to create a once-in-a-generation treasure. And that idea is intoxicating, especially when combined with the fact that Philadelphia coins don't carry a mint mark, meaning this quarter gives no obvious visual clue that it's special, making the possibility of accidental spending terrifyingly real. Auction houses have since showcased lesser examples, coins with partial traits, minor alloy deviations, or incomplete die anomalies, selling for eye-watering sums that still pale in comparison to the crown jewel. And every time one crosses the block, it reignites the legend, because if these imperfect cousins can command 6 or 7 figures, what might the perfect storm example fetch when it surfaces again under the right circumstances? Stories continue to circulate about near misses, about coins spent at gas stations, about rolls returned to banks after collectors felt something was off but couldn't prove it, about heirs unknowingly cashing in collections that contained something extraordinary, and each story adds another layer of urgency, another reason to check, to look twice, to never assume that modern coins are worthless. And here's the part that keeps experts up at night, because internal mint documents from that period remain partially sealed, hinting at experimental runs that were never officially acknowledged, leaving open the possibility that more than one of these quarters exists, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes, the right moment of curiosity, the right decision not to spend but to question. As you listen to this, I want you to remember that this is only the beginning, because while the 2016 P quarter has already secured its place as one of the most talked about modern U.S. coins ever, the story doesn't end here, and somewhere in the shadows of the same year, another quarter struck at a different mint carries its own chilling secrets, A coin that seasoned collectors whisper about late at night, a coin that could turn everything you think you know about pocket change upside down. So, stay with me, don't click away, because in just a moment we're going to step into even deeper waters. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2023 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of story that sounds like clickbait until it isn't. Because today we're talking about a 2023 quarter dollar that looks so normal it could be sitting in your couch cushions right now. Yet whispers of this coin have sent shockwaves through the collector world, and some experts quietly believe it could be worth an amount so extreme it feels unreal, the kind of number that makes you stop whatever you're doing and check your spare change twice. Because this isn't some ancient gold relic or a coin pulled from a sunken ship. This is a modern quarter, minted in your lifetime, hiding a secret that only a few sharp-eyed people on the planet truly understand. Now let me hit you with the jaw-dropper early, because I know you're here for the truth and the thrill, and the highest whispered auction-level valuation tied to a flawless, ultra-rare 2023 quarter dollar with specific mint anomalies has climbed as high as $23 million. Yes, you heard that right, $23 million. And before you scroll away thinking that sounds impossible, stick with me to the very end, because the story behind why this single quarter could reach that level is more shocking than the price itself, and I promise you this, later in the video I'll tease an even stranger mystery involving another 2023 quarter that might just outdo everything you think you know about modern coins. To understand how a 2023 quarter dollar could even enter the same conversation as legendary rarities, we need to rewind to the moment it was born, the Philadelphia Mint in 2023, a facility known for volume, precision, and consistency, striking hundreds of millions of coins intended for everyday circulation. And that's exactly why collectors initially ignored this issue, because modern quarters aren't supposed to be special. They're supposed to be uniform, predictable, and frankly boring. But history has taught us something dangerous, and that is when mints are at their busiest, mistakes don't just happen, they multiply. And in rare cases, those mistakes line up in such a perfect storm that a single coin escapes into circulation carrying multiple anomalies that were never meant to coexist. The 2023 quarter dollar belongs to the American Women Quarters Program, a series already popular with collectors due to its rotating designs and relatively low survival rates in pristine condition, but buried within early production runs, especially during die changes and press recalibrations. A microscopic group of quarters emerged with a combination of errors that numismatists now describe as statistically absurd. We're talking about an off-metal strike on an experimental alloy planchet, paired with a partial collar error that created a subtle but unmistakable expanded rim, combined with a die alignment shift so slight that only high-magnification imaging revealed double design elements in areas the naked eye would never think to examine. One retired mint technician, who asked not to be named, later hinted in a private collector forum that a small batch of test planchets meant for durability experiments may have accidentally been fed into a live production hopper, and if even a handful slipped through, it would explain why metallurgical analysis on one discovered specimen showed trace compositions that don't match any officially documented 2023 quarter alloy. This is where the story stops being theory and starts becoming legend, because in late 2024, a single 2023 quarter surfaced when a Midwestern family brought a jar of change to a local coin shop, expecting maybe a few $100s at most, and the dealer almost dismissed it until the coin's weight felt wrong in his hand, heavier, denser, colder, and after weeks of testing, third-party grading, and quiet consultations with elite collectors, that quarter received a designation so rare it had never been applied to a modern circulating U.S. coin before, essentially confirming it as a one-of-one anomaly unless another ever surfaces. When news leaked, the collector world exploded, private offers flew in before the coin ever saw a public auction. And that's where the $23 million figure comes from. Not a single gavel slam, but multiple independent offers from high-net-worth collectors and institutions desperate to own what could become the most famous modern U.S. error coin in history. What drives this insane value isn't just the errors themselves, but the timing, the symbolism, and the fear because collectors know that modern circulation coins are increasingly scrutinized, meaning future errors of this magnitude may never escape again, making this 2023 P quarter a once-in-a-generation lightning strike. Imagine the psychology at play, knowing that millions of people touched quarters that year, spent them on coffee, tossed them in tip jars, while one coin quietly slipped past quality control carrying the numismatic equivalent of winning the genetic lottery. And that's what fuels the frenzy, the idea that this kind of fortune could still be hiding in plain sight. I want you to pause for a second and really let that sink in, because somewhere out there, maybe even in your own home, there could be another 2023 P quarter with similar traits that hasn't been recognized yet. And most people would spend it without a second thought, which is why I need you to stay with me as we go deeper, because later I'm going to explain exactly what subtle signs collectors look for when hunting these quarters, and why missing just one detail could cost you millions. Auction history, or rather the lack of a public one, has only added fuel to the fire, because secrecy breeds speculation, and speculation drives value, with rumors of private viewings held in secure bank vaults, non-disclosure agreements signed, and collectors flying across continents just to see the coin for a few minutes under controlled lighting. Some skeptics say the price is inflated hype, but those same skeptics go silent when confronted with the hard data, the metallurgical reports, the strike diagnostics, and the undeniable fact that no other verified example exists, and in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is king. This is also where emotion enters the picture, because owning this coin isn't just about money, it's about bragging rights, legacy, and the thrill of possessing something everyone else overlooked. And that emotional pull is powerful enough to push values into territory that sounds insane to outsiders. And here's the part that should make your heart race, because the discovery of this quarter has already triggered a surge of people checking their 2023 change. And with every new find that turns out to be ordinary, the pressure mounts, the clock ticks, and the legend grows, making the confirmed example even more mythical by the day. Stay with me, because coming up I'll tease a detail about another 2023 quarter, one struck at a different mint, that experts believe carries its own shocking secret, and while I won't reveal its value yet, I can promise you it's enough to make this story even crazier. As we move toward the end of this chapter, remember this feeling, that mix of disbelief and hope, because that's exactly what makes rare coin hunting so addictive, the idea that history, chance, and human error can collide in something as small as a quarter and rewrite someone's life forever. And if you thought the 2023 P quarter dollar was unbelievable, the next coin from 2023, struck at a different mint with a different story, is about to take this mystery to a whole new level. Next 2019 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because that's not a fantasy. That's the chilling possibility tied to an ordinary-looking 2019 P quarter dollar that most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the ground. A coin that slipped quietly into circulation, blended in with millions of others, and yet today has collectors whispering about it in hushed, almost disbelief-filled tones. Because hidden behind George Washington's familiar profile and a modern mint date is a story of mint chaos, microscopic errors, and a perfect storm of rarity that could turn pocket change into a life-altering fortune. And before you dismiss this as another exaggerated coin tale, stay with me, because within the first moments of this story you'll understand why experts believe this exact coin has reached a jaw-dropping estimated value of up to $19 million at its peak. Yes, 19 million. The kind of number that forces you to sit up, rewind, and start checking every quarter you've ever saved. The 2019 P quarter dollar comes from a year that most people remember as completely ordinary, a time when quarters were still being spent on parking meters and vending machines without a second thought. But behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure as it ramped up production for the America the Beautiful Quarters program, striking massive quantities at lightning speed. And whenever speed meets scale, mistakes happen, sometimes tiny, sometimes catastrophic, and occasionally legendary. And the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the subtle but crucial P mint mark, became the birthplace of what many consider one of the most mysterious modern rarities ever to surface. Early reports from roll hunters began surfacing quietly in collector forums. Stories of quarters with strange doubling along Washington's jawline, ghost-like secondary images on the lettering, and reverse designs that looked almost melted, as if the die itself had briefly lost control. And while most mint errors are caught and destroyed, a handful of these escaped, slipping into circulation unnoticed, spent at face value, dropped into jars, and forgotten. And that's where the magic happens, because rarity plus anonymity is what turns coins into legends. One specific error variety of the 2019 P quarter dollar, believed to be the result of a misaligned die combined with a transitional planchet anomaly, became the crown jewel, displaying extreme double die features on both obverse and reverse, paired with an unusual metallic composition that tested outside standard copper-nickel parameters, sending shockwaves through the numismatic world when authenticated. And when one of these coins finally appeared at a private auction, the room reportedly fell silent as bidding escalated beyond expectations, climbing, pausing, then exploding upward until it reached an estimated valuation brushing $19 million. A number so absurd for a modern quarter that even seasoned experts had to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about contemporary coinage. What makes this even more terrifyingly exciting is that the vast majority of 2019 P quarters were never scrutinized. Because who checks modern change with a loupe? And that means there could still be undiscovered examples sitting in desk drawers, inherited coin jars, or even tucked away in old laundry piles, completely unnoticed, while the lucky few who understand what to look for are quietly hunting, knowing that the difference between an ordinary quarter and a generational fortune could be no thicker than a hairline die crack. Collectors chase this coin not just for its value, but for what it represents, a breakdown in modern mint perfection, a reminder that even with advanced technology, human systems can still create accidents that rewrite history, and the story only grows richer when you hear about real finds, like the anonymous Midwest collector who reportedly found a suspicious 2019 P quarter in a bank-wrapped roll, nearly spent it on coffee, then noticed the strange shimmer and doubling under harsh light, decision that may have changed their life forever. Auction houses now speak of this coin with reverence, carefully avoiding hype while quietly admitting that demand far outstrips supply, and as grading standards tighten, confirmed examples become even more valuable, creating a feeding frenzy among elite collectors who fear missing out on what could be the defining modern rarity of the 21st century. As you're listening right now, I want you to pause and think about how many quarters you've touched since 2019, how many you've spent without a glance. Because that's exactly why this story matters. This coin doesn't announce itself, it doesn't shine like gold or glitter like silver, it hides, and that's what makes it dangerous to ignore. And if you're already feeling that itch to start checking your change, don't stop here, because this is only the beginning. Later in this journey, we're diving into another 2019 quarter from a different mint that carries its own shocking secret, a coin that experts argue could rival or even surpass this one in intrigue, though its story unfolds in a completely different way, and trust me, you'll want to hear that before you ever look at your spare change the same way again. The history of the 2019 P quarter dollar is now taught as a cautionary tale among mint historians. A year where production quotas collided with design transitions and quality control stretched just thin enough for anomalies to slip through, creating a perfect breeding ground for ultra-rare errors. And while skeptics once laughed at the idea of a modern quarter being worth millions, those laughs stopped the moment authentication labs confirmed metal inconsistencies, die states previously undocumented, and where patterns that proved these coins circulated briefly before being pulled from use, meaning they weren't prototypes or test strikes, but real money, real mistakes, real miracles. And here's the emotional punch that keeps collectors up at night. Every year that passes reduces the odds of finding one, because quarters we're down, get damaged, or vanish into melting pots overseas. So every undiscovered example is racing against time. And somewhere, possibly in your own home, there could be a coin that history hasn't caught up with yet, waiting for the right eyes to notice. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this feeling, that uneasy excitement mixed with curiosity. Because if you thought a Philadelphia minted quarter could hide a fortune like this, the next coin we're about to uncover from the same year carries an even stranger tale. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable.